Hello, John Anderson. Welcome to Mic Drop. We're very excited to have you today. How you doing?
I am well, thank you.
Fantastic.
Just had a big weekend here in Columbia because for the first time we had the NCAA cross country championships, which I've done a bunch of times. It's the first time I've ever had a home game
Oh,
for
wow.
anything. So yeah, so it's really nice. So it's I got to sleep in my own bed, didn't have to worry about travel plans. I'm in good shape, thanks.
And you were also a runner, correct? Through college?
I was a jumper
A
when I was
jumper.
here. People like I always say I ran for the track team, and the runners are like, "Dude, you jumped," and I'm like, "I ran a lot." Which I really did in training. But now on meet day, I didn't have to run very far. 9 steps, that was it.
Wow. I come from a lot of a family where we have a lot of runners in the family, so
hmm
very passionate about, cross country meets and track meets and all of that. I want to start by asking you about your decision to go to the University of Missouri and study journalism. What led you to that field of study?
Well, oddly enough, some of it was being in track because I had a really great senior year and had never thought. I mean, I just literally started one year and I got a couple recruiting letters because I had done so well, and I thought, wow, maybe I could do this. I had no idea. But there was only two places I was ever going to go. I was going to go to Missouri for journalism school, or because I'm a big Badger at heart, Wisconsin for anything else, right? It didn't matter if it was animal husbandry or actuary science. I was going to go to Madison. And I called them and asked if I could run after this really out of the blue kind of great season. And they were very kind, but they basically said no. And there was some influx at the university. They had lost their coach in a plane crash. It was very Nazi.
Oh,
And so then I called the University of Missouri and called their coach, Bob Teal. And Coach Teal said, "Man, come on down. We would love to have you." And there you go. Now, and so I ended up down here, and I had thought about it as career paths. That one of them would be really great that I had an interest in, and so then I was down. So I came to Missouri to be a J school uh, student and to run for Coach Teal. And then what I found out later, after running it for the man for so many years, was that literally, if my best friend who had never seen a track said, "Coach, can I?" He'd have said, "Come on down. We'd love to have you." Because he was that kind of guy and he just sent us out to the golf course to run all fall, and he never ran me off.
oh, that's wonderful. I think it's interesting
Yeah.
that the influences that lead us to a decision, that maybe
Mhm.
isn't as obvious or as formal, right? You making a phone call, can I run? Sure. Okay, here I come. That's
And then,
fantastic.
yeah, and then to find out that I knew nothing really about the business. I had seen all the local sports guys, and I'm like, I think that's what I would like to do. I didn't have any great TV guy that I thought, oh, I want to pick somebody at that time. Um, and TV, it was a different medium then. It was not, as
Sure.
omnipresent. But I didn't want to be Howard Cosell, or I didn't want to be Kurt Gowdy or some of these guys. I wanted to be like a Bill Jarts or a Daryl Burnett or Jim Klein. These are guys in my local. Then I got down here and I realized once I got in J school, there's all kinds of jobs within the industry. And so by the time I got done, I left, and my first job was as a news photographer, and
Oh,
I was
wow.
an associate producer on the weekends. So
Mhm.
I liked producing. Like that was really amazing. And so I knew nothing, and I think I know more now, but I still, at least I try to put on a good face when I talk to students. But it's amazing the things I discovered, and I did that. If I add real quick, every time somebody comes shadow me when I was at ESPN for years. I get done and I'd say, "How many people did you meet tonight that were on TV?" And you know this, the answer is like four,
Right.
two anchors, maybe a guest. And I said, "How many people did you meet tonight?" And they're like 100.
Right.
And so, hopefully here, I'm not trying to smash goals, but I'm trying to like, listen, there's a lot of different things you can do once you get your foot in the door or your hand into this that can be really rewarding and really useful.
Do you think that experience as an associate producer and being behind the camera made you a better on-air talent when you finally went in that direction?
The producers would say no. They'd say, "Shut up and do what I ask. Don't keep giving me suggestions about how you would like to do this or how you would like to format the segment." Like, I really feel like that graphic's dumb. We should move it in a different place. Do we have sound for this? So I would say that I don't think they did. More seriously, I would say that I think in any of this, one, the more you know, the more you know. And I think if you have an appreciation for what the other people have to do, then when you have to ask them something that's out of the ordinary, hey,
Right.
can we try this? Same with like directors or if it's a cameraman and you're like, okay, I know what it takes for you to get that shot. So I think if you can tell them that you've done a lot of this and you have some fundamental understanding of what they do, that
Mhm.
then when you ask them to do things within that job specifically, or even better, above and beyond what they normally would do, at least they know
Right.
you know what you're asking. And so you can, one, articulate it, but two, say thank you in the right way that like, I know this isn't what you really like to do, but I would love it if you could light the studio this odd way for me.
Right.
So that in that regard, I think it helps a lot.
I would think it would give you also a great appreciation for the work that they're doing.
Mhm.
That you know what it took for them to create that segment, find that footage,
Yeah.
edit that piece so that you can tell it the way that you want to tell it, which makes, a far more collaborative environment, right? And you'll have more success that way. Um, is there a lesson that you learned early in your career that you now completely disagree with?
I'm trying to think about when you first start that question. I think, oh, I have one that was really, definitive that I learned from out of school. The one that
Share that. You can share that one too.
I disagree with wholeheartedly. Um, like I would love to disagree with every editor who ever tried to change a word that I wrote.
Mhm.
Um, because they'll go, well, what do you think about this word? I'm like, I thought about it a lot. Like that was kind of, I didn't put anything down on paper, and finally that I didn't really kind of believe in, like it didn't matter what it was. And so every once in a while they go, oh, like, let's just change this. And I'm like, how about we don't?
Right.
So maybe that part of that was I was not easily edited. Um, or when they'd send some, here's a suggested lead, and I was very clear, like, is this suggested or mandatory? Because those are two different things.
Very
Because if you're
different.
just suggesting things, I don't take suggestion well. So we did that, but more on the other side, I was in early on when I worked in Tulsa, and I was a photographer, and I came in one night for the night shift, and the news director, there had been a bad 6 o'clock, and he was blowing everybody up. And I kind of just stood in the background thinking, boy, thank goodness I had nothing to do with this. But he was out for everybody, and he came to me and he looked at me and said, Anderson, you need to learn how to run a live truck. You've been here 3 months. And that's a, old TV term. But anyway, and I looked at him and I said, well, nobody showed me how. And he looked at me and he said, did you ask?
Oh boy.
And that's the last time I ever ran into that. I made sure I ask when I don't know stuff. And I try to tell people right now, especially in this business, television, if you ask, people don't think you're dumb. They think you're curious. People, if you ask, don't think like, God, what a moron. They think, this guy, I will teach this guy or gal how to do their job better because we're all selfish. That means my job just got easier, you
Correct.
know? And so that was the biggest thing. Boy, did you ask has stuck with me literally now for almost 38 years, all the time. Did you ask? And I thought, I did not. But you know what? I can run a live truck today if you need me.
Okay,
I
good.
can go out on your live shot if you need it.
Have you added that to your resume? Because I understand some companies are hiring.
Yeah, I think that technology is gone. I was a desk jockey for so long at ESPN that I took a bunch of kids up to the NFL draft in Green Bay.
Mhm.
Like my live truck was just this backpack that I got to carry up with him. I'm like, wow, just plug it in, off we go. I'm like,
Right.
man, uh, I now, much like how to run a rotary phone, I have a lot of skills that are out of date. But I'm glad I know how to go how
Yeah.
to use it.
I'm a big fan of the rotary phone, so don't lose that skill. When and how did you find your voice in terms of your style of presenting, and writing?
Mhm. The first thing is that I've found in all of that is you just have to do enough of it to realize you have one.
Hmm.
Um, uh, like I don't think I wrote near enough in college. I know I didn't, even though I wrote every assignment we had and went through that. And I just think, first off, the more you write, the more you learn to write like yourself.
Hmm.
Uh, when we did 50 and 50 at ESPN the first time when it was revolutionary, uh, I had to write the lead into the guy. I don't forget who it was, but he was down in Florida and he was like big game fishing. And so I thought, it'd be really funny if I wrote this kind of like Hemingway. It
Hmm.
was a story and it was a damn good story. And then I realized, it took me like 90 minutes to write this 30-second clip because I don't write like Ernest Hemingway,
Right.
right? I had to look at it and discover the voice. If I had to just write it like me, it would have taken 12 minutes because I write like John Anderson. Um, And it wasn't, I worked for a guy in Tulsa when I started to transition over to in front of the camera. And there were two guys. One of them was really good and really encouraging. And I'd say, does this seem off the wall? And he'd go, no, I feel like you should go and run with that. And then the other fellow wrote long and passive voice and wasn't very good. And so I thought, okay, I don't want to write like that. Um, but the guy I worked for, he was really encouraging, and nothing was, I don't want to say out of bounds, but he just encouraged you to look at it in a different way. And that happens a lot. If you work at ESPN for 25 years, that means that 25 years you got to write about the Super Bowl. And you can't write the same thing every year about the Super Bowl.
Right.
And so I came to really appreciate that in all of writing, the best thing you can do is have a really curious, have some imagination, write what the other people aren't going to write, find the angle that other people aren't going to talk. Because it's very easy to say that the Chiefs and Eagles kick off at 6:30 and we're now 24 hours away from that. And I'm sure people are getting tense. Like that's pretty easy. And that's what most people are going to do. And um, I think that's sort of what got me hired at first at ESPN was a little bit by Al Jaffe, is that he recognized something. And then when I was at ESPN, they encouraged that too. Like, go ahead. We got enough people that can tell you the Yankees are playing the Red Sox and it's an old rivalry and da da da. Um, so it took a while, but in all of it, what I discovered most wasn't so much my writing style or a voice, was do you have a better idea?
Hmm.
Do you have a better idea to write about than other people? And that's what I always try, without getting to minutia or anything.
Right.
But can we do that in a, like, for instance, I had a student the other day, and we were talking about the softball team at Missouri, which was the only one that didn't make the SEC last year, which was an aberration for them. And I said, you know what? All that woman ever gets is softball questions. We should ask her some hard questions in her life, because all she gets is softball questions. And so now we had a hook. We had this fun idea, and she did terrific. And she said, it wasn't that hard to write. I'm like, I don't think it is once you have the idea.
Right.
Excuse me. So that's the biggest part, is you just, man, that blank piece of paper that you look at, or that blank screen, it can be both intimidating, or it can be really, what an opportunity. And I try always look at it as like, this is an opportunity to write a sentence that nobody's ever written before. And I'm going to try and do that.
That's awesome. What's the focus of your journalism teaching now? Like what is it, what's your goal when you go into a classroom that you're trying to impart on these students?
Wow. So some of that is that, literally that line I had there, which is a Rick Riley line, the great, who wrote for ESPN, but was a great Sports Illustrated writer. And he said, I went to college thinking I want to write sentences that have never been written before. And I'm like, boy, that's the idea. And I know Rick well. And we talked about that one night at dinner. And I said, that's going to be my thing. I want to try to write lines that nobody ever wrote before. And it's really hard to do, because so many things you got to write are kind of standard,
Right.
you know? So the Red Sox won 3-2. Like, a lot of your things are just, they're pre-prescribed. And so the classes I have now, one of them is a general freshman journalism writing course. So we do all kinds of stuff, from writing a profile to how to write a house fire, how to write a social media share, how to write from a news release. All these, we master none, but we introduce all to it. And so a lot of it is, just how to write a decent lead. Boy, again and again and again and again. How do we write the lead? How do I capture people's attention? How do I get the information in there? That's a big thing. And then I work with a bunch of students in an advanced reporting class that are sports oriented kids, which is something they didn't have when I was here. And so we're out trying to find stories that aren't just, I mean, you got to do the one that, hey, the running back is leading the nation in rushing, and that's unusual, so we should do that. But we also went out and found out, because we found out the kid was from Mississippi, and he had two horses that he's got out at a barn here, and he goes and rides them almost every day. So after a big game, we went and rode horses with him. And to find those kind of stories, again, so much of it I just preach imagination, curiosity, and then, like, write a sentence that no one's ever written before. Which is kind of a dual edge. The first time I thought I had the spirit of it, and then some of the new people, as they're freshmen and they're writing in a style they've never written before, they have indeed written sentences that are never written before, but given their conjugation of subject and verb, I hope they're never written again, ever. But that's good. That's why I'm here, is to figure out, this is why that didn't work, and let's see, we can take your idea and make it work.
That's awesome. So I assume in this role as a professor, you are also mentoring young broadcasters today, or people who think they want to be young broadcasters. What's the first blind spot you'd look for in their resume tape or their demo reel?
Ooh, the first one is I think a lot of it is the first one I find is that their little montage goes on too long. Okay, cool. I've seen you been some places. I don't need a minute of it. So that's one. It's just we go a little long, and they get really caught up on anchoring. And as someone who did not start in that, I think that's the most learnable skill is
Hmm.
to sit because it's uncomfortable at first to sit and talk at a camera. There's only one person there. They're not paying attention. And
Right.
right, I get that's odd, but that can be learned fairly quickly, I think. Writing takes longer. Telling a good story takes longer. And I'm like, let's make sure we have a couple of really good stories in there because if they can see that you can tell the story,
Hmm.
how many people sit on anchor desks that aren't really, and I'm not trying to condemn them, God bless them, but they're not journalists. They have a great golden voice and their hair is perfect. And you go, boy, that could be it.
Right. Or
Or
there's been, yeah.
I worked with a gal she was okay. But she was like the first runner up for Miss Texas and they put her on there. Like you can teach that kind of thing.
Hmm.
So I don't know if it's necessarily a blind spot. I just know that one goes on too much and one generally isn't enough. And then the other part on the thing, I just tell make sure, especially I mean, this is me gonna stump for the home team and brag. Make sure there's references on there because those tapes get looked at you get 200 applicants
Hmm.
and that person, that news director, he or she doesn't have that kind of time. So they're
Right.
going to give you 2 minutes. But if we know someone there and I can get you 4 or 5, now I've really increased your chances to go there. So that's one of the things I want to encourage is first off, let me know where you're applying and let's find people we know there so we
Hmm.
can make sure that thing gets looked at. But yeah, don't get so in love with the fancy kind of, oh, I've got this cut and this cut and this cut and this cut. And now you've got 15 clips of you in front of different places, which is nice, but you've also worn me out. Like, get on with it.
Right. Right. That's a good one. Um, what do you believe will be the most important skill for broadcasters in the next decade that no one was teaching when you started?
Ooh, that no one was teaching. Because I'm like, I think writing will always be universal, both in terms of always be useful and across any platform or medium. I think it's the most transferable and the skill that's easiest to if you have it to get hired and do a lot of things. Um, I think it just all literally revolves around um, the content and delivery and how we put it together. The fact that I was able to the other day, I was somewhere and I said, "Oh, I'll get that because I'm out there and I'll just shoot it on my phone." And that it's quality that you can actually put on, which before you never could, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm still down on. I'm like, why do we not have a light on that? Well, I was
Right.
inside. The cameras are better. Put a light on it, and not
Right.
yell at them. So I think it revolves all around content and delivery. And it's funny as somebody who started in the business as a shooter, for all these people that are MMJs anymore, none of them shoot very well. And we used to have photography class here and we don't now. And I'm starting pounding on it. And I realized that the people on the broadcast side are not as welcoming to it as I thought. So I've gone to the people that do our photo doc and the guys at the paper and these other things. Um, and sort of enlisted their help in showing the importance of it. But I think there's going to be a more general nature that you better be a bunch of stuff. I work with 3 students who work for the paper, the Missourian, but how many times you see now that paper wants after a game 10 minutes with their beat writer and somebody and they sit and talk. Okay, well, let's
Right.
help teach you. So I think it's going to be more and more. I don't want to say lines are blurred. I just think it's going to because I don't think you can blur lines of journalism, but I think you're going to be required to do more and have more skills in general. So
Mhm.
maybe it's not any one. I think it's just a collection. You better know how to do more of anything. Like it used to be, I would do your story and you turn it in, you went home. Well, now they're like, okay, do you have the web version of that you can
Right.
post?
Right.
So I feel like you better know both sides of of all of it because it's all now being required for everybody. And then the delivery of it is, like you said, what used to be a live truck, I can now put in a backpack, or what I used to watch on my big, beautiful Best Buy TV, I can watch on my phone sometimes.
Right,
Um, and then I think people will always consume it in the easiest possible way.
right.
Whatever that next easiest way is what we'll end up doing.
How much influence does reading have on your writing?
Um, I started a sports, I am in the sports, I have a FIG, a freshman interest group. And that's really the only thing that it's supposed to get them used to the university. So someday you have a field trip to find everything on campus. And some days it's about how to manage your money,
Mhm.
which college is different because my managing money was just like, how do I have money? I don't have money to manage. I didn't have any. Now
Correct.
they have a little more somehow. But, or now we talk to them about stress and all the things that are available to them. They have stress and anxiety, which we didn't have. We're just like, tough it out, rub dirt on it. But in every one of those classes, there's a reading assignment every day. And I'm fortunate that some of them are Missouri writers
Mhm.
that were great, that are, Wright Thompson, Seth
Oh,
Wickersham,
yeah.
we proudly claim. Tom Friend, who wrote for us, TJ Quinn, all four of
Yeah.
those guys. So I make sure I sample from them. I think it's unbelievably huge. And that goes back to some degree of finding your voice because you read things. I'm not a big Hemingway guy. If in my time I would not sit down and reread The Old Man and the Sea, other than when it was assigned.
Right.
But I'll read about anything that a guy named Gary Smith wrote for ESPN Forever, excuse me, for Sports Illustrated, or I loved to read as a kid growing up Mike Royko, who was syndicated out of Chicago, or Jim Murray. Um, there's a guy now named Eric Larson who kind of writes these historical books. And so the more you find that, oh, I gravitate towards that person, and usually when you gravitate to towards some sort of author, I think it's because whatever that is how you would like to write or how you feel yourself, and it speaks to you, and you find yourself doing that. I'm not saying I'm Jim Murray or Mike Royko, but I tend to write way more like them than I would Frank DeFord, who was
Right.
wonderful, but I don't write like them. So I think it's hugely, hugely important to the two best ways to figure out how to write well are one, write a bunch, and two, read well to write well. Both those things are helpful. But yeah, you can't. Um, in fact, that's one of the things right now, because the station kind of got turned upside down and I'm doing some different things that I'm not supposed to, and they're taking up a ton of time, is that I've got like 4 books stacked up that I haven't gotten to. Because people give them to me all the time, like, you're going to love this read. I'm like, great. So I'm behind in my reading, but man, yeah, please do read, read, read. It's fundamental. I saw that in a commercial somewhere.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I am really I don't know what the right adjective is, intrigued, I guess, by the way you described how you tend, we gravitate towards a certain writer perhaps and not really maybe know why initially, just like, oh, I like this John Anderson. I like the way
Yeah.
he told that story, but I'm not dissecting how John Anderson told that story. And I think for me, when I started in this business and was assessing talent, I sat in my office for hours watching Monday Night Football, which I had watched for probably a decade prior, on the West Coast. So it was happy hour. You got home by 8, 8 o'clock as
Right.
opposed to starting at 8 o'clock. But it took me a while, but I would just listen to Al Michaels and I was like, what is it about this guy? Why do I like him? And then I would, it's like the curious kid, but why? But why? And I would just keep asking
Mhm.
why, or why do I not like John Anderson? But why
Mhm.
not? What is it about him? What's he doing that makes my hair stand up?
Yeah.
And it was incredibly informative and educational to be able to turn around to someone like you if I watched your piece where I could come to you and say, this is where I thought you nailed it, and this is where I think you could have been stronger because I spent hours and hours and hours, it's more than Al Michaels, but watching
Right.
everybody and just learning. And I find it interesting that I don't think many talent do enough of that. It's not only themselves, but watch everybody and really ask,
Yeah.
why is John Anderson good? What makes him different? What are you getting that you can't get yourself?
Yeah. And it's funny when you talk about Al Michaels or some of the great play-by-play guys. Keith Jackson, one time, he said his job was really simple. It was to inform, to clarify, and to amplify. Here's what's going on. If something you don't wasn't clear, I'm going to clarify. And then if it's really great, I'm going to amplify it. But he said, and then he said the fourth one is don't intrude. And more often than not, I decide that's the difference between people I really like and the people I don't. The people I don't care for as much find a way to intrude, whether it's screaming too loud, whether it's constantly using some pet phrase again and again and again,
Mhm.
or whether it's not, instead of just once in a while saying a home run, we have to have it a circuit swat and a clout and a, like, sometimes just tell me it's a home run.
Right, right, right.
And that's what I have found. People like Al Michaels, their brilliance was, yes, they could capture the moment,
Hmm.
right? But they did that without intruding, right? If you go, they just had this big thing, and I'm not going to bag on Gus Johnson. I'm just going to say this is an example of it. When the Penn State Indiana thing, guy catches it, and he's screaming so loud, just to be screaming, and he's losing his voice, and all he's doing is intruding. And compare that with Al Michaels. Do I believe in miracles? Yes. Which there was certainly excitement in his voice at the end, but he didn't scream that at me.
Right.
He just gave me energy and it was there. And the other guy intruded. And I think, you know, it may be as nuanced. It may be kind of like the Chief Justice was a burger. I know obscenity when I see it. I don't really know how to find it.
Right.
But that's what I find is people, and you should do that with them, right, where you're writing too. Like you can be too clever, right? I've done things where I thought, oh, this is going to be great. And then I read it and boy, that was awful. I
Hmm.
will not do that again because like nobody bats 1,000. Um, but that's a big thing that I look for too, is like, let's not intrude on our audience. And too often we do that in ways both intentional or and not knowing, but then there are times where we just self-sabotage ourselves because we just don't recognize it.
That's fair for sure. Um, I'm only going to ask you one more question to give you your day back, and that is there a piece of advice that you would give yourself, when you were graduating from college, or maybe some of the students that you're teaching now that you think is really, just one of those golden nuggets that will carry them forward?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a magic bullet kind of thing. I know that we should write more. Nobody writes enough, especially when you're young. You're just, there's that. Don't be intimidated by a deadline. That takes a while to get used to, but it all gets done. You know, in my class that I had one kid, he showed up every day at 20 minutes before, right when I was there. And I said to Riley, I said, you're on time, whether you're here 20 minutes or 2 seconds. As long as you're there when the red light goes on, you're on time in my book. When you do that, the biggest thing is literally, and it's everything. I said to John Butchergross sitting there one night, I said something about confidence, and he said, confidence is everything in anything. And so I think whatever it is you do, you have to commit to it. And if you have the confidence in it and it shows, it's amazing how far that will take you. Now, it can't be unfounded. You got to have the goods behind it.
Right.
But I think about when I was here, I came to run, and I tell everybody I was the worst high jumper in the history of the University of Missouri. And it comes as I cover more and more of it now for umpteen years. I'm in the Olympics. I'm like, I was not as bad as I thought I was. And I could have been a lot better if I'd actually thought to myself, you're actually really good at this. Don't think that you're lucky to be on this team. You've kind of earned your spot and you're actually okay. But I were in with guys that were much better than me. And that's the same thing now. I tell them all the time, go out there and perform it with pride. Have confidence in what you do because you got to sell it and people will realize it if it's not there, if it's not for the timid people.
Right.
Uh, you have to have for those, whether if you're sitting in that chair for an hour or 3 minutes, or if you're writing that, you got to have some vanity in it. Like you can be, I'm glad you're super, afterwards, if you want to be humble. Stuart Scott was a very humble super, but boy, when he was in the chair, he didn't think anybody was better than he was. And I'm
Hmm.
going to do it my way and I'm going to sell it with conviction. So we tend to think, oh my gosh, we don't want to be, no, you need to be really arrogant when you go on or when you have a byline and you're writing because you're telling people how it is.
Right.
You've made all these news and value judgments about what I'm going to tell you and why it's important. Then you got to make sure you got to have there's a certain amount of arrogance to it. Um, and you need that confidence, whether you're writing that line or you're presenting that line. And I think that's a big thing that until you do that, till you adopt that, till you get what that is, I feel like you're just a person kind of playing the person on TV or you're kind of playing reporter.
Mhm.
And that's not what it is. You have to be the anchor. You have to be a reporter. Don't just do what you think, oh, well, I saw that on SportsCenter. That's how anchors are. Because if that's the case, then we'd all look the same, and we don't. The people that you remember from ESPN aren't the same. Scott Van Pelt is a unique person. Stuart Scott was a unique person. Neil Everett
Neil
was
Young
unique.
is a unique
Is
person.
that too? Yeah. But all those people, but they are, and they are exactly who they are,
Right.
right? If you met any one of those people off the screen, that's who they are. Kenny Mayne is just as demented on television as he is off it, which is great. And the number of times I saw Stewart when some kid came up to him and said, "Man, someday I want to be just like you," and he would just simply say, "Well, you shouldn't do that. There's already one of me."
Right.
But you could be one of you, right? So if you can have that, be who you are, because that's your gift, is that you're not like the other person. And then make sure you have confidence in that, that can sell, that if I write it well, that can be enough. And that can be my ticket, is because I'm not like Neil Young or Neil Everett. Um, or Stewart or Scott or Mike Eves or Nicole Briscoe or Linda Cohn or all those people.
Right.
So in that regard, kind of the bet on yourself thing, but be that person, because that's the easiest person to be, and
Sure.
that person's unique. Be that person, and then be that person with great confidence. And I think that will help you go far. And then that just builds. That, once you kind of snowball and go, okay, I'm all right at this. And I can sit next to Stuart Scott and Rich Eisen and like, okay, I'm not, that's my peer group. I'm okay
Right.
here.
Right.
Which sometimes is hard to learn.
I lied. I have two more questions for you,
Okay.
if I can. Um, your transition from, sitting on a desk 5 nights a week for 25 years to
Mhm.
focusing on track and field, cross country, play by play, Olympics, marathons, all of that. How was that transition for you? It's something you're passionate about, but that's a big
Yeah.
shift. There is a, I don't want to say
Yeah.
grind in a negative way, but
Mhm.
the grind of a daily show versus a big event
Yeah.
that
So
happens.
the beauty was when I was at ESPN, it was such a nice respite from doing what you had just described. Because no matter if you have the greatest job in the world, you do it sometimes in the same four walls. So to get out and just see people again, get the energy of a live event and be there, that's a huge part of it. And then to some degree, play by play in those things is unique. And I say unique in an easy way. I watched the guy who really, I think, is the utmost at it. Um, Steve Levy can transition from the desk to a hockey game like nothing. And hockey's really hard to call. I
Hmm.
did one years ago when I was in local, and it was fine, but it gave me an appreciation for how hard that is. And that's not what I want to do. And I don't want to be the play-by-play guy at Monday Night Football. But calling play-by-play for a marathon's not too hard. They're doing the same thing. You're going to do it for 2 hours. It's more about knowing the characters, telling the story of that. So that becomes, it's an easier kind of play-by-play if that's it. Or for some people, maybe it's harder because you're not resetting that there's, nobody, it's an empty backfield and there's two wide receivers to the left. And right,
Right.
there's none of that that you have to go through. So it makes a difference. And it's incredibly easy to understand. I
Hmm.
don't have, how do you break down the fact that, in football that a guy missed a block or he was open and he missed the read? Like football, track, you're like, that guy was faster than the other guy, you know? So that makes it much easier. But so that was always one of the attractions. It was just a nice way to get out of the building. And that was something I loved, was even better. So, and I kind of like the grind of learning about 30 runners, even though it's going to come down to two and you're going to be a
Right.
fistful of information that you'll never, you
Yeah.
know, you never have to use, but you're glad you did it. And then your family gets annoyed with you when you're like, John, I don't want to hear about the Moroccan distance runner that dropped out at 16 miles. And I'm like, but it's very interesting. His sister works for, the Peace Corps. But yeah, I don't get a lot of that at home. But so it's not in this case because of the nature of that kind of play by play doing it's not that big a transition. It's actually super refreshing.
That's awesome. The last one's it's a softball question. What is something about you that the general population doesn't know?
What
Secret
is it?
hobby,
Yeah.
fear.
On occasion, I'm good at golf. I hate the dark is a fear.
Oh.
Like if I still to this day, you turn on every light in the house, I can be up a flight of stairs in no time, like a jackrabbit. Um, uh, People know now that I ran track here since I got more into the track community. They should
Right.
know that. How about this? I won two meets in college. One of them, I was the only guy in the field.
Oh,
That
congratulations.
one's not as prestigious. The other one, at least I was required to beat other human beings in it. And then probably I'm a huge James Bond guy that I don't know that people know. And yeah, so
Do you have a favorite Bond?
Sean Connery, yeah, Sean Connery, and then after that it would be Daniel Craig.
Hmm.
Not much of a Roger Moore guy, but like I literally, there's a place called the London Stock Exchange, and they just came up with these 60th anniversary of the Goldfinger set of socks, and boy, when those came, you'd have thought they were delivering gold bars to my front door. And I'm like, look at these. And I'm trying to figure out where they were. And I went to an event the other day in San Diego, a friend of mine from here actually, and it was a black tie. And so I had my new tuxedo on, and then I had these
Oh,
James Bond socks, and I felt like, right, I literally was looking for a villain because I was ready to save the world. And to some effect, I did because I woke up the next morning, the world was there and it was safe. So I don't know if I had a huge hand in it, but if nothing else, um, it survived because of I was ready to go because I was in full James Bond mode.
well, I appreciate that those socks gave you the
Gave me
confidence
confidence.
to
Totally.
go out there and execute at a moment's
Yeah.
notice. You were
Now,
ready.
if I had a Walther PPK, like in my hand, I'd be ready to go. But I'm not really. I don't know that I'm firearm tested, so I'll just save the world with guile and
And wit.
cynicism.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. You're killing me.
Are you a producer, an anchor, maybe a news director of the future? Are you in sports, weather, a reporter? At Kann Broadcast Talent Coaching, we provide what you've been waiting for to elevate your career. Our agency of Emmy Award-winning coaches is ready to help you stand out in the crowded landscape. We work with former athletes, students with a dream, and veterans changing directions. Let's start now with a brief chat, a look at your reel, and understand your goals, and let Kann Broadcast Talent Coaching do the rest. Visit cannbroadcastcoaching.com and let's elevate today.